Under the black sky above the mountain, Indra hovered in midair, his entire body surrounded by lightning. Countless spheres of thunder continuously revolved around him, emitting a terrifying buzzing sound. Below, Chen Fuzzy's carriage had been badly damaged. Dressed in white, Chen Fuzzy stood before the carriage, repeatedly using his ruler to shatter the bolts of lightning raining down upon him. The surrounding scenery, with birds singing and flowers blooming, was destroyed by the thunder and then rapidly restored, while Chen Fuzzy himself was badly injured. Burn marks covered his white robes, and the tip of his ruler had been scorched black. Indra mocked him, saying that if Chen Fuzzy had continued hiding inside the carriage, he might not have been able to do anything to him. But since Chen Fuzzy had chosen to come out and fight, he now had nowhere to escape. A massive bolt of lightning struck down, forcing Chen Fuzzy to block it with his ruler. The remaining lightning pierced into his mental realm, causing him to suffer another injury and cough up blood. Despite this, Chen Fuzzy stood proudly and declared that Indra had killed the people of Great Sha and invaded its territory. So he could not simply stand by or retreat. Great Sha would never allow foreign gods to trample upon its land with impunity. He unleashed surging killing intent, accompanied by the resounding sound of reading from within his mental realm, creating a powerful aura against Indra. However, Indra easily shattered the killing intent and mocked the people of Great Sha as mere mortals, claiming that since Great Sha had no gods, they had no right to challenge the divine. Another attack severely damaged Chen Fuzzy's mental realm, leaving him even more heavily wounded. Yet he wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, straightened his back, and declared that he would sacrifice even his own body to prove that Great Sha could never be humiliated by foreign gods. His mental realm suddenly transformed completely. The peaceful scenery of birds and flowers disappeared, replaced by a cold, blood-red abyss that seemed to be gathering an incredibly terrifying killing technique. Just as Chen Fuzzy was preparing to fight to the death, a dazzling divine light suddenly shot up from the city, piercing through multiple layers of thunderclouds and creating an enormous opening in the sky. A terrifying divine aura descended upon the mortal world, causing even Indra's expression to change. Through the sunset shining down from the gap in the thunderclouds, a figure wearing silver battle armor and wielding a three-pointed double-edged spear slowly stepped forward through the void. Beside him was a fierce black hound. Chen Fuzzy recognized the newcomer and became overwhelmed with excitement. It was Jian. Jian announced his identity, while the vertical eye between his brows erupted with divine light and locked onto Indra. He then coldly asked, "Who said Great Sha had no gods?" In an instant, Jian disappeared and reappeared directly before Indra with astonishing speed. Before Indra could defend himself, Jian shattered all the lightning within a 10-mile radius and seized him by the throat. Indra was terrified and transformed into lightning in an attempt to escape. But Jian's third eye immediately sealed the entire surrounding space, leaving him completely unable to flee. Jian violently hurled Indra from the sky into the ground, creating a massive crater, then appeared before him again and stomped heavily on his chest. Jian condemned Indra and the other foreign gods for surviving within the mist by sacrificing their own people and abandoning their territories, declaring that beings like them were unworthy of the title of gods. He then threw Indra tens of thousands of meters into the sky before pursuing him with the three-pointed double-edged spear. During the aerial battle, Jian severed one of Indra's arms. Enraged, Indra summoned a gigantic bolt of lightning from the heavens and sent it crashing toward Jian. Jian did not dodge. Instead, he swung his weapon and directly split the lightning bolt in two before continuing to charge toward Indra. Jian declared that the gods of Great Sha had once sacrificed their divine power and physical bodies, transforming themselves into 9 national guardian divine stels to protect the borders, prevent the mist from invading Great Sha, and safeguard its countless people. A true god, therefore, was not someone who merely enjoyed power, but someone who had places that must be protected, people who must be protected, and beliefs that must be upheld. With those words, Jian swung his weapon and cleaved through Indra's neck, beheading him. Indra's blood stained the sky, while Jian, covered in blood, stood proudly above the 9 heavens with Indra's severed head in his hand. Finally, he looked toward the divine kingdoms hidden within the mist and declared with overwhelming authority that the 100-year cycle had ended, and that today, the gods of Great Sha had officially returned. In the East Sea of Great Sha, Chu Ping stood alone in the middle of the ocean. Confronting Poseidon, the waves surged violently, and countless droplets of seawater transformed into tens of thousands of water blades that rained down from the sky. However, Chu Ping merely swung his longsword lightly, using sword chi to precisely shatter every water blade without allowing a single drop of water to touch him. He calmly declared that Poseidon would not be able to pass him today. Poseidon had to admit that the young man before him possessed enough strength to stand on equal footing with him. Just then, Yang Jian's voice echoed from afar, announcing that the 100-year cycle of reincarnation had ended and the gods of Great Sha had officially returned. Chu Ping immediately became delighted, while Poseidon was utterly shocked when he realized that Indra had died, proving that the gods of Great Sha had truly returned. Recognizing that the situation had changed, Poseidon stopped attacking, opened a passage leading into the depths of the sea, and retreated. However, he still warned that Olympus would not fear Great Sha and that his battle with Chu Ping was not yet over. Only after Poseidon disappeared did Chu Ping finally relax, hugging his knees and sighing in relief because he could finally return home to rest. At the northern border of Great Sha, Hades, who had been confronting Yi Fan, was also forced to stop after learning that the gods of Great Sha had returned. Yi Fan was not surprised at all, because as the commander-in-chief of the Night Watch, he knew an important secret: the gods of Great Sha had never truly disappeared. They had merely remained silently by humanity's side, protecting them all this time. Hades warned that the return of the Great Sha gods would destroy the existing balance and make Great Sha the target of numerous other mythological lands. But Yi Fan was completely unfazed. Hades eventually withdrew, and the netherworld domain covering the mountains also disappeared from the mortal world. However, after his opponent left, Yi Fan's relief gradually turned into a complicated expression as he looked toward Kangnan City and quietly called Yang Jian's name. Meanwhile, Kangnan City had suffered catastrophic destruction after the battle. Most of its roads and buildings had disappeared, leaving only a few high-rises and newly constructed streets from the past decade intact. The once prosperous city was now devastated, with less than 1/10 of its population surviving. Yang Jian returned carrying Indra's head. But after the battle, the reincarnation power he had accumulated over the past century had been completely exhausted. His divine core had been severely weakened. His silver armor flickered in and out of existence, and the light in his third eye had nearly disappeared. Haoshan Hound followed beside him in great distress. Yang Jian tried to comfort it, saying that this life of his had probably reached its end. Even so, he had no regrets, because this battle had made the name of the Great Sha gods resound throughout the world and forced foreign gods to think twice before invading Great Sha again. He believed the time he had bought would be enough for the other gods to recover their strength and take over the responsibility of guarding the borders. After saying this, Yang Jian leaned against Haoshan Hound and slowly closed his eyes as his aura weakened. At that moment, a mysterious Taoist appeared before him. Yang Jian recognized him as a heavenly venerable and was extremely shocked by his arrival. The heavenly venerable criticized Yang Jian for acting too recklessly and risking his entire future just to kill an ordinary foreign god. But he also admitted that Yang Jian's achievement was immensely satisfying and worthy of praise. He then infused a stream of primordial energy into Yang Jian's body to save him and revealed that, after they returned, Lao Jun would place Yang Jian into the furnace and reconstruct his divine core. Yang Jian was even more astonished when he learned that the reincarnated form of another heavenly venerable had also awakened. The heavenly venerable explained that they had not found him, rather, he had awakened on his own. He placed Yang Jian on Haoshan Hound's back and warned him never to act so recklessly again, because the matters that followed would be handled by the gods of Great Sha. When Yang Jian asked what would happen next, the heavenly venerable revealed that he was not actually the most completely recovered among the gods of Great Sha. Looking into the distance with a cold gaze, he declared that the retreat of the foreign gods did not mean everything was over. Great Sha would never allow foreign gods to come and go as they pleased. Finally, on Mount Changbai, a shirtless middle-aged man appeared at the edge of a cliff, holding a longbow with an arrow prepared behind him. His eyes seemed capable of piercing the endless void as they locked onto a distant figure. The next moment, he drew his bow and released a brilliant golden arrow. The arrow tore through space with terrifying power and shot toward its target, signaling that the true counterattack of the gods of Great Sha had only just begun. Poseidon was rapidly traveling through the deep sea, using the ocean currents to move at incredible speed, when a shower of golden arrows suddenly descended from the sky. The arrows pierced through layer after layer of seawater, carrying terrifying power and instantly locking onto Poseidon's position. No matter how many times Poseidon changed direction to evade them, the arrows continued to pursue him, moving even faster than he could underwater. Realizing that he could not escape, Poseidon stopped and turned to face the incoming attack. He raised his trident, controlling the seawater to form multiple layers of heavy water barriers in front of him while simultaneously releasing the divine might of the sea god across the entire ocean. However, the golden arrow possessed terrifying kinetic force, smashing through every water barrier before charging straight toward him. Poseidon angrily swung his trident to counterattack, but the collision generated enormous waves and the tremendous force knocked the trident directly from his hand. Immediately afterward, a second golden arrow appeared. Poseidon barely managed to dodge its tip, but the remaining force still tore through his body and directly severed one of his arms. The blood of the sea god stained the deep sea red. Poseidon picked up his severed arm, enduring the intense pain while filled with anger and humiliation. When he looked back, no third arrow appeared. Poseidon understood that this was not an attempt to kill him, but a warning from the gods of Great Sha, because he had attempted to invade Great Sha's territory. He had been forced to pay the price. Burning with hatred, Poseidon coldly declared that he would remember this grudge before immediately accelerating back toward Olympus. In the underworld, an old monk wearing Buddhist robes appeared in the netherworld, surrounded by a faint white radiance and powerful Buddhist light. Wherever he walked, the wandering spirits he encountered were purified by the light and disappeared. Hades quickly appeared to stop him, because the netherworld was the foundation of his power and existence. The old monk calmly introduced himself as Jian, explaining that he had been ordered to come and purify 100,000 resentful souls of the underworld. Hades immediately sneered, believing that Jian lacked the ability to accomplish such a task. Jian did not argue. Instead, he released a powerful burst of Buddhist light, illuminating half of the dark underworld like the sun in the darkness, and calmly stated that whether he could do it or not would be known after they tried. In Jian City, Jian rode the howling celestial hound alongside a Taoist and asked about Loki, the Norse god of trickery who was trapped in the area. The Taoist explained that he had already sealed the surrounding space, so Loki could not escape, but the rest would be left for Lin Qiye to handle himself. Jian was worried because Lin Qiye had not even reached the Chuan realm at that time and seemed incapable of fighting a god like Loki. The Taoist explained that Jian City had disappeared half a month earlier than expected. This meant that all the divine power left behind by the seraph to sustain the mortal god realm for those final 2 weeks had been released and poured into Lin Qiye's body. With this divine power and the mortal god realm, Lin Qiye had temporarily obtained enough strength to kill a god. The Taoist also reminded Jian that absolute protection could not help Lin Qiye grow. Although the gods of Great Sha possessed the ability to protect the nation, they could not forever replace the younger generation in facing danger. Only by enduring pressure and overcoming life and death trials on their own could Lin Qiye and the others rapidly grow stronger. The appearance of the gods of Great Sha this time was already enough to intimidate the foreign gods, making it unlikely that any major threat would emerge in the short term. Therefore, after returning, the gods would focus on rebuilding the heavenly court. The Taoist explained that divine kingdoms such as Japan's Takama Gahara, the Norse Asgard, and Greece's Olympus had already reappeared. So Great Sha also needed to restore its divine kingdom and allow the heavenly court to once again appear beneath the sun. The process could take several years or even more than a decade. If they relied only on the gods who had currently recovered, it could take at least 15 years. Now that the 100-year deadline had arrived, the Great Sha gods who had once entered reincarnation were gradually awakening. They could only hope that more gods would return over the next few years to help rebuild the heavenly court. Jian suddenly thought of Sun Wukong and regretted that if he were still alive, the situation might have been much easier. Unfortunately, Sun Wukong had never even entered reincarnation. The Taoist then hinted that not entering reincarnation did not necessarily mean complete death, because in this world covered by the mysterious mist, anything could happen. However, he refused to reveal anything further, simply saying that heavenly secrets could not be disclosed. Finally, at the border of Jian, Lin Qiye stood motionless before the city that had completely vanished. Looking like a statue, an endless amount of divine power continued pouring out from his body. Golden light enveloping him completely as a dazzling golden radiance gradually appeared within his eyes. In a half-conscious state, Lin Qia's consciousness seemed to ascend to the moon. Standing before him was the seraph, the divine being who had once guarded humanity. The seraph silently stood there and slowly opened his eyes, signaling that a major transformation was about to take place within Lin Qia. Lam that Da appears on a vast gray-white land covered with countless meteor craters. Beneath a pitch-black sky filled with stars. Standing in a gigantic crater, he looks toward the horizon and sees Earth slowly rotating in the distance. Most of the planet is covered by gray mist, with only Great Sha and the Arctic region still remaining. The familiar scene makes Lam that Da realize that he is on the moon, where he once again sees the seraph standing before him. Its tens of meters tall body radiates golden light, with 6 enormous snow-white wings extending behind it. The scene is exactly the same as what he witnessed 10 years ago, leaving him uncertain whether he has truly returned to the moon or is merely reliving a memory. He soon realizes that he has no physical body and exists only as consciousness. At that moment, the seraph opens its eyes, releasing terrifying divine pressure. After reassuring Lam that Da, it tells him that this time its light will not blind him as it did 10 years ago. The seraph explains that this place is both a consciousness hidden deep within Lam that Da's mind and a form of reality. Only after Lam that Da completely inherits its divine ruins can this consciousness appear to answer the questions buried in his heart. Lam that Da immediately asks why Kangnan disappeared after he left the city. The seraph reveals a horrifying truth. 10 years ago, the entire city of Kangnan had already been erased by Shiva's grudge, and Lam that Da became the sole survivor because a girl managed to save him. The city he had lived in for the past 10 years should never have existed in the first place. Kangnan continued to exist only because of Lam that Da's mortal divine realm. The mortal divine realm is essentially the creation of miracles within the mortal world. It can resurrect the dead, restart all things, and turn events that should be completely impossible into reality. This power originated from the seraph and continued to exist through Lam that Da. However, the seraph emphasizes that it did not do all of this because it wanted to save Lam that Da. It was merely fulfilling a transaction made 100 years ago, when the fog first appeared and the seraph arrived on the moon. Someone who called himself Lingbao Heavenly Venerable of Great Sha found him. Lingbao Heavenly Venerable had already foreseen that Kangnan would be erased 90 years later. He asked the seraph to choose the sole survivor at that moment as its representative, transfer its divine power into that person's body, and preserve Kangnan for another 10 years without imposing any additional conditions. Lam that Da is deeply shocked because Lingbao Heavenly Venerable is one of the 3 heavenly venerables of Great Sha mythology. This means that the gods of Great Sha truly exist and had even foreseen Kangnan's fate long ago. The seraph explains that Lam that Da has now completely become its representative and possesses the mortal divine realm, while Kangnan has also been preserved for the full 10 years. Therefore, its mission is complete. When Lam that Da asks what price Lingbao Heavenly Venerable paid for the transaction, the seraph refuses to answer, making him understand that this is a secret beyond his authority to know. However, Lam that Da suddenly realizes something crucial from the seraph's explanation of the mortal divine realm. If the divine realm can truly resurrect the dead, then could the people of Kangnan from 10 years ago still be alive? The seraph immediately crushes that hope. It explains that Shiva's grudge did not merely destroy Kangnan physically, it erased the city at the conceptual level. Once Kangnan was erased, everything connected to it was erased as well, including every resident inside the city. The moment the name Kangnan was written into Shiva's grudge, every living being within the city was erased. These words strike Lam that Da like lightning because he immediately remembers his aunt and Atan. The people he had always believed were still living peacefully in Kangnan throughout those 10 years. Before he can fully accept the truth, the seraph's figure begins to fade and the surrounding space starts to distort. Before disappearing, the seraph tells Lam that Da that some of its divine power still remains inside his body. And before that power disappears completely, he can still use it to accomplish whatever he wishes. Lam that Da immediately returns to his physical body. Time outside seems not to have passed at all, making everything that happened feel like a dream. Yet he cannot believe that the seraph's words were false. He immediately activates the seraph's divine power, tears open space, and returns to Kangnan. Instead of the familiar city, he finds only a completely empty wasteland. Lam that Da stands there in shock, desperately searching for traces of the place that was once his home. This area should have contained the old low-rise buildings, a corridor covered with advertisements, and the room where his aunt and Tan lived. But now the entire old district has vanished without a trace. Not a single brick, roof, tree, or sign of life remains. At last, Lam that Da is forced to face the truth he most desperately wanted to deny. Kangnan had truly been destroyed 10 years ago. And the home where his aunt and Tan once lived no longer exists. It is 6 in the evening. Auntie should have already prepared dinner. Ting would probably still be doing his homework. And little he lazy should have been lying on the balcony, lazily basking in the evening sun. But now, all that remained before Lin Kie was an empty, desolate stretch of land. The autumn wind swept across the ground, scattering fine sand into the air. Apart from silence, nothing else remained. Lin Kie could not believe what he was seeing. In that instant, every memory of the 10 years he had spent here flashed through his mind. He remembered the meals he had shared with his family, the ordinary days with Auntie, Ting, and little he lazy, and the promise he had made 10 years ago that after completing his mission, he would return to this house. Yet now, the people were gone, the house had disappeared, and the world he cared about seemed to have completely collapsed. In pain and despair, Lin Kie rushed forward and frantically dug through the soil with his bare hands, desperately searching for even the slightest trace of his family. Tears streamed down his face as memories of that stormy night and his promise to return home resurfaced. At that moment, the night watchers, the gods, the mist, and everything else outside no longer mattered to him, because the world he truly cared about had vanished. Suddenly, Lin Kie thought of the mortal god realm. 10 years earlier, he had used this ability to revive all the residents of Kangnan after the city was erased. Therefore, he immediately wondered whether he could use the same miracle to bring Auntie and Ting back to life. He still possessed an enormous amount of divine power, enough to sustain the entire city of Kangnan for half a month. So he immediately unleashed all of it and pushed the mortal god realm to its limits. However, the result plunged him into despair. He could not find the souls of Auntie or Ting. A soul carried a person's memories, personality, and very essence. Therefore, even if Lin Kie could reconstruct their bodies, without their souls, they would merely be empty shells. 10 years ago, he had been able to revive the people of Kangnan because the mortal god realm had managed to preserve their souls after the city was erased. But this time, not only were Auntie and Ting's souls missing, even little he lazy's soul was nowhere to be found. In fact, not a single soul remained throughout the entire city of Kangnan. Lin Kie could not understand what had happened. He did not know whether someone had taken the souls away or whether they had completely disappeared. Recreating a soul from nothing with the mortal god realm was not entirely impossible, because the very essence of a miracle was making the impossible happen. However, the divine power remaining within Lin Kie was simply insufficient to reconstruct even a single soul. Realizing that he truly could not save his family, Lin Kie was overwhelmed by unbearable grief, rage, and despair. His negative emotions nearly swallowed his reason completely. At that moment, Merlin appeared behind him and successively used 3 mental spells: Clear Mind and Calm Spirit, Emotion Weakening Curse, and Heartlock and Thought Sealing. Under the effects of the 3 layers of mental magic, the chaotic thoughts in Lin Kie's mind gradually subsided, allowing him to regain his composure. He thanked Merlin, wiped away his tears, and looked toward the distant sky. If he could not even revive his own family, then there was only one thing left for him to do: take revenge. Lin Kie stood up, drew the straight sword beside him, and his eyes immediately filled with murderous intent. He called out Loki's name, and the other straight sword embedded in a rooftop several kilometers away suddenly trembled before shooting through the air and flying into his hand. With golden light erupting around his body, Lin Kie instantly tore through space and appeared at the outskirts of Kangnan. Holding 2 swords, he was determined to kill a god and avenge Auntie, Ting, and the entire city. Meanwhile, Loki stood before the ruined Kangnan and was filled with malicious satisfaction. He believed that turning the city into a dead wasteland was its proper fate. Because no matter how brilliant a miracle might be, it would eventually perish. He mocked the return of the great Shah gods, claiming that even their return could not save anything. Loki attempted to open a spatial passage and leave, but suddenly discovered that the surrounding space had been completely sealed. No matter how much power he used, he could not break through the spatial blockade. Loki immediately realized that someone had deliberately prevented him from leaving. Yet he could not understand why no god had appeared to kill him. While he was thinking, Lin Kie suddenly tore through the void and appeared before him. Seeing Lin Kie, Loki quickly guessed that the gods intended to use him as a whetstone for Lin Kie. Loki then recalled the prophecy and began to suspect that Lin Kie might be the person mentioned in it, but immediately dismissed the possibility because, according to his understanding, that person should have been erased along with Kangnan 10 years ago. Lin Kie ignored Loki's words and simply walked toward him step by step, coldly declaring that Loki would definitely be buried together with Kangnan. The mortal god realm then opened, and golden divine power erupted violently, creating a miracle powerful enough to terrify even a war god at the infinite level. Lin Kie's strength continued to rise, his entire body shining like a blazing sun against the desolate wasteland. Holding his twin blades, he charged directly toward Loki, while dozens of enormous magical formations simultaneously appeared, filling the battlefield with terrifying magical fluctuations. All of Lin Kie's pain originated from the divine battle 10 years earlier, when Gaia and Loki had written that name upon Shiva's grudge, ultimately causing the tragedy of Kangnan. Lin Kie was not yet certain that he could defeat Gaia, but Loki was right in front of him, making him the immediate target of his revenge. Sensing the terrifying power erupting from Lin Kie, Loki realized that Michael's remaining divine power still existed within him. However, the god of trickery still did not believe that Lin Kie could kill him with that power alone. Loki sneered and unleashed the full divine might of the god of trickery, officially beginning his battle against Lin Kie.